All right, and we are back. So check it out. We have another segment that we're going to do. As you all can see, what is on your screen is Flavius Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews. Very interesting, fun, beautiful facts. Flavius Josephus. Now, I like to teach and I like to talk about Flavius Josephus because from what I learned about the elder, he was a master teacher. He was a master historian. All right. Of course, painted white like the rest of the great people. Flavius Josephus was not originally named Flavius Josephus. As you can see, he has early life. He has what's also called a military career. All right. Josephus as historian, his legacy, references, and quick facts are related topics. So there's a lot of people who don't like or don't deal with Josephus, and that's just their own opinion. That's just their own opinion. Flavius Josephus was born to an aristocrat, priestly family. Aristocrat means he was a high-ranking Levite, priestly family in Jerusalem. So Flavius Josephus was not a Gentile. So whoever tells you that, they're blatantly racist. They don't know what they're talking about. Josephus is a master scholar. All right. So we're going to play this real quick. We're reading from the Britannica website. All right. According to his own account, he was precocious, excuse me, in youth. He was a, what is this word right here, man? I have trouble with that word. I have trouble with pronunciation. Reading, if you think that's what. All right. Well, I like to know what things are. So that curiosity keeps me going. Keeps me young. All right, so let's see what this is. Precocious of a child, having developed certain abilities or proclivities, okay, of an earlier age than usual. All right, so he was advanced. All right, boy who at the age of 14 was consulted by high priests in matters of Israelite law. At age 16, he undertook a 3 year sojourn in the wilderness with the hermit Banish, a member of the ascetic sect and, that flourished in Judea around the time of Christ. So Josephus was a first-hand count eyewitness to a lot of things. So I'm gonna play this real quick, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a listening party. All right, share it down, and let's get it.
And when she had saluted him, she said that he brought the most desirable and greatest pleasures to her father with all their family, who was always mentioning his mother, and always thinking of her, and her alone, and that this will make thee equal in his eyes to any advantageous circumstances whatsoever. Then she bid him go to her father, and follow her, while she conducted him to him, and not to deprive him of such a pleasure by staying any longer away from him. When she had said thus, she brought him to Laban, and being owned by his uncle, he was secure himself, as being among his friends, and he brought a great deal of pleasure to them by his unexpected coming. But a little while afterward, Laban told him that he could not express in words the joy he had at his coming, but he still inquired of him the occasion of his coming, and why he left his aged mother and father, when they wanted to be taken care of by him, and that he would afford him all the assistance he wanted. Then Jacob gave him an account of the whole occasion of his journey, and told him that Isaac had 2 sons that were twins, himself.
Now, you may have remembered, but when we just went through the Torah portion, Genesis chapter 38, all right, what we seen was, well, I apologize. What we just went through when we went through the Torah portion, Genesis chapter 28 through chapter 32, we just seen this account. We just seen the relationship of Laban, his correspondence with Jacob, right? Now, here's the thing. Josephus is going to give you more details. Josephus is going to give you more details. So in the process of, I want you to listen closely to things that you may have not heard before.
And Esau, who, because he failed of his father's prayers, which by his mother's wisdom were put up for him, sought to kill him, as deprived of the kingdom which was to be given him of God, and of the blessings for which their father prayed, and that this was the occasion of his coming hither, as his mother had commanded him to do. For we are all, says he, brethren one to another, but our mother esteems an alliance with your family more than she does one with the families of the country. So I look upon yourself and God to be the supporters of my travels, and think myself safe.
And now we see one of the issues of Esau. Esau knew that his mother did not like the people of the land. Esau knew that his mother didn't like the people of the land, that his father wasn't pleased with the people of the land. So what did Esau do? He went and took one from the Ishmaelites. Now, here goes something else. Here goes something else. Very important to know that not only did our mother, Rebecca, she had this planned out. She knew it. She made the plans. She told Jacob what to do. Then Jacob went forward and sent her son on their way. She didn't do it ahead. She said, no, this is the plan. And baby, I'm going to tell you the plan.
In my present circumstances. Now Laban promised to treat him with great humanity, both on account of his ancestors, and particularly for the sake of his mother, towards whom, he said, he would show his kindness, even though she were absent, by taking care of him. For he assured him he would make him the head shepherd of his flock, and give him authority sufficient for that purpose. And when he should have a mind to return to his parents, he would send him back with presents, and this in as honorable a manner as the nearness of their relation should require. This Jacob heard gladly, and said he would willingly and with pleasure undergo any sort of pains while he tarried with him, but desired Rachel to wife as the reward of those pains, who was not only on other accounts esteemed by him, but also because she was the means of his coming to him. For he said he was forced by the love of the damsel to make this proposal. Laban was well pleased with this agreement, and consented to give the damsel to him, as not desirous to meet with any better son-in-law, and said he would do this if he would stay with him some time, for he was not willing to send his daughter to be among the Canaanites, for he repented of the alliance he had made already by marrying his sister there. And when Jacob had given his consent to this, he agreed to stay 7 years. For so many years he had resolved to serve his father-in-law, that having given a specimen of his virtue, it might be better known what sort of a man he was. And Jacob, accepting of his terms, after the time was over, he made the wedding feast. And when it was night, without Jacob's perceiving it, he put his other daughter into bed with him, who was both elder than Rachel, and of no comely countenance.
Stop. So when it says, look, no comely countenance, Josephus is clearly telling us that there is a difference in their appearance. All right. Now, we perceived that before, but maybe some of us have never heard it like that. So let's take it into account.
Jacob lay with her that night, as being both in drink and in the dark. However,
so I've heard people say, how did Jacob not know? How did Jacob not know? He was drinking and it was dark. She uncovered. She was covered up in her wedding clothes, and he hid. Can you come with a different perspective? I don't know one. So for that, it stands that I have to go off of the literature that I've been given. If this is the literature that I have to find something to compare it with, and something else to say, oh no, this is really it. If it's not, I can only go with what I got.
when it was day, he knew what had been done to him, and he reproached Laban for his unfair proceeding with him, who asked pardon for that necessity which forced him to do what he did, for he did not give him Leah out of any ill design, but as overcome by another greater necessity, that notwithstanding this, nothing should hinder him from marrying Rachel, but that when he had served another 7 years, he would give him her whom he loved. Jacob submitted to this condition, for his love to the damsel did not permit him to do otherwise. And when another 7 years were gone, he took Rachel to wife. Now each of these had handmaids by their father's donation. Zilpah was handmaid to Leah, and Bilhah to Rachel, by no means slaves, but however subject to their mistresses. Now Leah was sorely troubled at her husband's love to her sister, and she expected she should be better esteemed if she bare him children. So she entreated God perpetually, and when she had borne a son, and her husband was on that account better reconciled to her.
Boom, right there. So that connection between a woman and a man is there. She wanted that. She's seen that. Man, all right, so we married, but you really don't choose me all like that. So what can I do? And it worked.
She named her son Reuben, because God had had mercy upon her in giving her a son, for that is the signification of this name. After some time, she bare 3 more sons.
Now, what I would do there is, if Josephus says that is the signification of this name, what I would do there is I would go and find other books, Antiquities books, and you can do this too. I would just go and find other books that say the same thing. Are there any books that give a breakdown of the names of the 12 tribes? I tell you, Issachar Seville is one of them.
Simeon, which name signifies that God had hearkened to her prayer. Then she bare Levi, the confirmer of their friendship. After him was born Judah, which denotes thanksgiving.
Now, we see a whole pattern of relationships by the titles. Now, I know the 12 tribes chart is based off of this. And the 12 tribes chart is also based off of Deuteronomy chapter 30, is it 33? And also Genesis chapter 49, where it gives a list of the prophecies of what the children of Israel will go through. All right. But for now, we're only learning what did the names mean, what did the relationships bring. Right?
But Rachel, fearing lest the fruitfulness of her sister should make herself enjoy a lesser share of Jacob's affections, put to bed to him her handmaid Bilhah, by whom Jacob had Dan. One may interpret that name into the Greek tongue, divine judgment. And after him, Nephthalim, as it were, unconquerable in stratagems, since Rachel tried to conquer the fruitfulness of her sister by this stratagem. Accordingly, Leah took the same method and used a counter-stratagem to that of her sister, for she put to bed to him her own handmaid. Jacob therefore had by Zilpah a son whose name was Gad, which may be interpreted fortune, and after him Asher, which may be called a happy man, because he added glory to Leah. Now Reuben, the eldest son of Leah, brought apples of mandrakes to his mother. When Rachel saw them, she desired that she would give her the apples, for she longed to eat them. But when she refused, and bid her to be content that she had deprived of her the benevolence she ought to have had from her husband, Rachel, in order to mitigate her sister's anger, said she would yield her husband to her, and he would lie with her that evening. She accepted of the favor, and Jacob slept with Leah by the favor of Rachel. She bare then these sons, Issachar, denoting one born by hire, and Zebulon, one born as a pledge of benevolence towards her, and a daughter, Dinah. After some time, Rachel had a son named Joseph, which signified there should be another added to him. Now Jacob fed the flocks of Laban, his father-in-law. All this time, being 20 years, he desired leave of his father-in-law to take his wives and go home. But when his father-in-law would not give him leave, he contrived to do it secretly. He made trial, therefore, of the disposition of his wives, what they thought of this journey, when they appeared glad and approved of it. Rachel took along with her the images of the gods, which according to their laws, they used to worship in their own country.
Stop. So we've seen a lot, and I hope that you all heard something. I wanted to pinpoint this because we see that this pattern is there. We read it from the Torah. It has to sync. It has to line up. But Josephus gives us also reasons and explanations why. Listen up.
And ran away together with her sister. The children also of them both, and the handmaids, and what possessions they had, went along with them. Jacob also drove away half the cattle, without letting Laban know of it beforehand. But the reason why Rachel took the images of the gods, although Jacob had taught her to despise such worship of those gods, was this, that in case they were pursued and taken by her father, she might have recourse to these images in order to obtain his pardon. But Laban, after 1 day's time, being acquainted with Jacob's and his daughter's departure, was much troubled and pursued after them, leading a band of men with him, and on the 7th day overtook them, and
Now, I don't want to rewind it, but right there, I heard something different when Josephus mentions the time frame. Maybe you'll notice it for yourselves. Go back and listen.
found them resting on a certain hill. And then indeed he did not meddle with them, for it was eventide. But God stood by him in a dream, and warned him to receive his son-in-law and his daughters in a peaceable manner, and not to venture upon anything rashly or in wrath to them, but to make a league with Jacob. And he told him that if he despised their small number, and attacked them in a hostile manner, he would himself assist them. When Laban had been thus forewarned by God, he called Jacob to him the next day, in order to treat with him, and showed him what dream he had, in dependence whereupon he came confidently to him, and began to accuse him, alleging that he had entertained him when he was poor and in want of all things, and had given him plenty of all things which he had.
Now you see how Laban switched the game up? So 1 minute he like, yeah, I got you, man. I'll be so happy to be here with you. I got you. Anything you going, hey, you my nephew. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to only have your back on behalf of our kindred. I'm also going to have your back because it's just the right thing to do. Now Laban switched the game up and Laban say, man, I had your back when you ain't have nothing. I was there for you when you ain't have nothing, Jacob.
For, said he, I have joined my daughters to thee in marriage, and supposed that thy kindness to me would be greater than before. But thou hast had no regard to either thy mother's relation to me, nor of the affinity now newly contracted between us, nor to those wives whom thou hast married.
Oh my goodness, Laban is going in. You ain't grateful for me for nothing. You came here broke and you ain't have nothing. And when you got here, I gave you this, and this is mine. And man, has anybody ever went through that?
Nor to those children of whom I am the grandfather. Thou hast treated me as an enemy by driving away my cattle, and by persuading my daughters to run away from their father, and by carrying home those sacred paternal images which were worshipped by my forefathers, and have been honored with the like worship which they paid them by myself. In short, thou hast done this whilst thou art my kinsman, and my sister's son, and the husband of my daughters, and was hospitably treated by me, and didst eat at my table. When Laban had said this,
can you see how disrespectful Laban is? And I believe that this is why we go into the narrative of how Abraham didn't accept anything from anybody except for Yahweh. And when he came down and when he got his nephew Lot back, and the king of Sodom and Gomorrah came to him and was like, nah, man, here, you keep all this and just give me the people. Abraham just kept riding like, no deal. No deal. Not one shoelace. So that you can say this, no, Yahweh did this for me. Let's see what Jacob's reply was. Yeah, this is crazy.
Jacob made his defense that he was not the only person in whom God had implanted the love of his native country, but that he had made it natural to all men.
You ain't the only one who loved their homeland. The Most High made it to where we all love our home, man.
And that therefore it was but reasonable that after so long time ye should go back to it. But as to the prey of whose driving away thou accusest me, if any other person were the arbitrator, thou wouldest be found in the wrong. For instead of those thanks I ought to have had from thee, for both keeping thy cattle and increasing them, how is it that thou art unjustly angry at me, because I have taken and have with me a small portion of them? But then, as to thy daughters, take notice that it is not through any evil practices of mine that they follow me in my return home, but from that just affection which wives naturally have to their husbands.
Stop. That just affection that wives naturally have to their husbands. It is a natural affection for a wife to desire her husband. Any woman that does not desire her husband, man, I remember the first time I heard this, let it be said, I went through a relational issue or two, I had some experience down that road, talking about. But but the natural affection that a woman is to have towards her husband, is universal. So when that's not displayed, that really says a lot. And I think that, that's something for women to pay attention to and for men to also hearken to. I had a woman tell me one time, if an untrue woman tells you something, man, she said, just believe it. She's like, you trying to believe things that you want to believe opposed to believing what's in front of you sometimes. And I was like, wow. You know what I'm saying? And that was from a woman. But Jacob, and so salute to, to these wise women, these virtuous women, etc. such that, So Jacob's response is, I didn't kidnap your daughters. Look, their natural affection that they have towards their husband is what led them with me. So salute to all you virtuous women. Follow on.
They follow, therefore, not so properly myself as their own children. And thus far of his apology was made, in order to clear himself of having acted unjustly, to which he added his own complaint and accusation of Laban, saying, While I was thy sister's son, and thou hadst given me thy daughters in marriage, thou hast worn me out with thy harsh commands, and detained me 20 years under them. That, indeed, which was required in order to my marrying thy daughters, hard as it was, I own to have been tolerable. But as to those that were upon me after those marriages, they were worse, and such indeed as an enemy would have avoided. For certainly Laban had used Jacob very ill, for when he saw that God was assisting Jacob in all that he desired, he promised him that of the young cattle which should be born, he should have sometimes what was of a white color, and sometimes what should be of a black color. But when those that came to Jacob's share proved
That is so crazy. He kept switching what I would give you. I'll give you all the white ones. I'll give you all the black ones. That's crazy. Now I get it why he made them speckled and striped and gristled. I never perceived that before. Oh, yeah.
numerous, he did not keep his faith with him, but said he would give them to him the next year, because of his envying him the multitude of his possessions. He promised him as before, because he thought such an increase was not to be expected, but when it appeared to be fact, he deceived him. But then, as to the sacred images, he bid him search for them, and when Laban accepted of the offer, Rachel being informed of it, put those images into that camel's saddle on which she rode, and sat upon it, and said that her natural purgation hindered her rising up. So Laban left off searching any further.
Now, there's where I learned that the word period, menstrual cycle, which are absolutely two separate things. People don't know that, but menstrual cycle, period, two separate things. So, so when a woman goes to the time of her flower, the phrase that my family, etc., has started using is one, we started using flower. Now you can say quabah, Quabah, for that. Excuse me, Quabah for the word flower. Also for vagina, but the word quabah can also be used for the phrase that's in Deuteronomy chapter 24. Deuteronomy chapter 24, it says, if a man finds some uncleanliness in her, when it's referring to her uncleanliness, it's not speaking about only the anatomy part of her vagina, but it's also speaking of her anatomical part, which is also goes from the far end of her rectum, like up to the back of the small of the back behind the rectum, all the way up to the pelvic bone. That area is what uncleanliness is in Deuteronomy chapter 24. It's called pudenda, pudenda, pudenda. All right, so you can look that up for yourselves. All right, we are absolutely not making this up. All right, so it doesn't say you can divorce your wife for any cause, but only if she has exposed her privacy, her nakedness, her uncleanliness, her pudenda, from her back of her rectum all the way to the front of her vagina. And for an Israelite woman to do that, she has to take off all of her clothes. So the Bible doesn't contradict, well, not all of her clothes, but at least enough of her clothes that go down to her lower parts. So with that being said, natural purgation, right? So this is what Rachel lied about, saying she was on her natural purgation. This is her menstrual cycle. So big up to the sisters that went through with me, all right, and helped me to understand things that I didn't know. All right, and I hope that this helps you understand also. Natural purgation, she lied, period. She wasn't on it.
Not supposing that his daughter in such circumstances would approach to those images. So he made a league with Jacob, and bound it by oaths, that he would not bear him any malice on account of what had happened. And Jacob made the like league, and promised to love Laban's daughters. And these leagues they confirmed with oaths also.
Isn't that beautiful? So it's okay to make a covenant with an Abba, with a father. You know, we encourage you to. You know, make a covenant that, you know, and maybe that's something that your sisters can put in your ketubas. All right. You know, you can put in your ketubah, you know, I only want to be, like, we have the Mashar Yasharala ketubas, and those are wonderful. So you can put in your ketubah, hey, I don't want another wife for maybe the next year. I don't want another wife for, you know, 3 years. I don't want another wife for 6 months, or I don't want a wife for, maybe that's something you can put in your ketubah if your husband will agree with it. And that way you can help to mitigate what your polygynous stance going to be. Because you have some brothers, like myself, you'll come home, as my ribs say, well, it ain't been like that in a while. I don't know. As they used to say, well, we would come home and we would have a new sister wife, and I'd be like, for real, like, yeah, back in the day, but point of saying such to say, maybe that's something women can mitigate in their future ketubas. All right, because we see that Jacob did it here with Laban. Jacob had 4 wives. Now, I wouldn't say women you should always expect that to happen, but maybe if it's like a first time marriage or something like that. But if you like wife number 6, you shouldn't expect, or you like wife number 8, 9, 10, you like wife number 4, maybe. You probably shouldn't expect your husband to be like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. You know, he may not. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing wrong with asking, sister. Okay, ain't nothing wrong with asking. All right, but let's see.
Which they made upon certain mountains, whereon they erected a pillar in the form of an altar, whence that hill is called Gilead. And from thence they call that land the land of Gilead at this day. Now when they had feasted, after the making of the league, Laban returned home. Chapter 20. Concerning the meeting of Jacob and Esau. Now as Jacob was proceeding on his journey to the land of Canaan, angels appeared to him and suggested to him good hope of his future condition, and that place he named the camp of God. And being desirous of knowing what his brother's intentions were to him, he sent messengers to give him an exact account of everything, as being afraid on account of the enmities between them.
Now, I'm going to pause that right there because that's for next week's Torah portion. And yes, this is a listening party, but what I wanted to do was I only wanted to share that part from Josephus. All right. So yes, listening party, anybody would like to, they can go back, they can hear it for themselves, they can be like, oh, that's where that came from. That's why he thinks like that. Oh, that's where I can find that at. All right. So yes, and that's where, and that's why. All right. So we want to encourage everybody, if you do get a chance, study the other Antiquities books. All right. And they'll really help you. They really will. So as you know, we also have Isidore of Seville's etymologies. All right. We also have this book shared and pulled up. All right. And one of the reasons we do is because we were learning about the names and the forefathers of the names. Right. What is the name of Zilpah mean? What does the name of Bilhah mean? What does Leah mean? What does Rachel mean? What does the name Edom mean? Right. So this is one of those Sephardium. This is one of those books where you can find that. Why does it matter? Because it can help you to learn so much, and therefore you're just not repeating what somebody says, but now you actually know. All right. So I pray that that is a help. I pray that that was a help. All right. I'm going to turn this down just a smidgen. All right. Turn it down just a smidgen, just for me. All right. I apologize if you was digging, if you was feeling it. All right. All right. So it's still there though. All right. Back to it. Aaron means mountain of strength, Aharon, because taking his censer, he stood in the way between the survivors and those who had been killed. And as a kind of mountain of strength, he prevented the destruction of death. Now, I read this about Aaron's name in another place, and it said that he was another one that wrestled or struggled with Yahweh. He conquered. He conquered. He stood in the gap for us. And we didn't understand that, in Christianity and in church, in churchhood, all that stuff. We didn't understand those phrases like standing in the gap. But they're like code words that you got to go and find. All right. Now, I want to read this because we read about the patriarchs today. And in the process of reading about the patriarchs, we also heard what their names was and what their names mean. Okay, so we're gonna go right up here, all right, and let's start at Abraham. Okay, And this should be an extra help. All right, this should be an extra help for everybody who wants to know. Born again sons, blessed proclamation, Issachar, we're almost done. All right, Zebulon, Dan, Joseph. All right, and let's go up. That's Alicia, etymologies, and pagans. All right, boom. So let's stop right here. All right, and I like to read, so let's read. This is for your benefit. I pray that you get some edification of it. All right, thy name shall be Abraham, because I have made thee a father of many nations. 3, Isaac took his name from laughter. All right, Yatzizak. I say Yaakov, it's Yatzizak for laughter. For his father had laughed when Isaac was promised to him. I believe his mother had laughed. It says his father had laughed, astonished in joy. Excuse me. His father had laughed, astonished in joy. And his mother laughed, doubting in joy. Isn't that interesting? When Isaac's birth was promised by the 3 men, therefore he took the name Isaac for this reason, for it means laughter. It should moreover be known that 4 people in the Old Testament were given their names without any concealment before they were born. Oh, wow, that's great. Ishmael, Isaac, Solomon, and Josiah. Wow, did you know that? All right, I did. All right, read the scriptures, and it shows Genesis chapter 16, Genesis 21, 1 Kings, 2 Kings chapter 12, 3 Kings chapter 13, and vocate, it says, see these pages above. Jacob means supplanter, either because in birth he clutched the heel, planta, of his newborn brother, or because afterwards he deceived his brother by a stratagem. Now, we sing this, and that was all in this Torah portion. And Jacob, not only, my bad, I'm so sorry about that sound effect in the background, y'all. Jacob not only supplanted his brother, but he also supplanted his uncle. You're not about to get over on me. Now, here was the other thing. Jacob was doing this in righteousness. He wasn't just a wicked dude. And people say, Jacob was a liar. Jacob was following instructions. He followed the Lord. He followed what his mother said. You know what I'm saying? He followed what his father said. He followed what his uncle said. And at the end, he finally snapped on everybody. Not everybody, but who was needed at the time, which was Laban. All right. So Jacob means supplanter either because his birth is here. Let me take this and copy this. I want to make sure because I know some of you also like to study. Some of you also like to read. And that's a grateful thing, man. We love scholars. You know, it's fun to be able to share things. No, I don't want to do that. All right, it's fun to be able to share things that you learn with people. All right, it's fun to be able to say, hey, I know this. Did you know that too? Now we know it together. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So there's a link for that page. And let's go back to, all right, whence Esau said, Genesis 27, verse 36, rightly is thy name called Jacob, for he hath supplanted me low. Hey, this second time. Hold on 1 second. Good night! Whence Esau said, Genesis 27, verse 36, rightly is his name called Jacob, for he hath supplanted me low this second time. 6, Israel, the man. Can you make sure that's on YouTube? That's on the channel for them. Go out. Make sure it's on my channel on there for them. Go out. Israel, the man, seeing God, for he received this name at the time when, having wrestled all night, he beat the angel and struggled and was blessed at daybreak. Hence, because of his vision of God, he was called Israel, as he himself says. Genesis. Now, there was a brother that I was building with the other day, and we was going over the name Israel. And I just got to say this: I blatantly spelled Israel incorrectly. You know, I spelled Israel with the ha, with the H at the end. I'm sorry, it's mine. Let's see, make sure. Okay, come on. I spelled Israel with the ha, with the H at the end. Israel has no ha, H at the end. It ends with the lamed, or la, and it's L-A, or, you know what I'm saying? This is also why you see people say Israel, 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 El. All right, so Yashar Allah is incorrect. All right, so Israel, the man, seeing God, for he received his name at that time when having wrestled all night, he beat the angel in a struggle. And this is why we say the name Yashar Allah means he prince power. Yashar Allah, he prince power, and was blessed at daybreak. Hence, because of his vision of God, he was called Israel, as he himself says. Genesis chapter 32, verse 30. I have seen God, and my soul has been saved. 7. Reuben, Ravan, means son of the vision. Indeed, when Leah gave birth to him, she called his name Ravan, saying, for God saw my affliction. 8. Shemaiwan, interpreted as the hearing. All right, Shemaiwan is like this, the name is similar with Ishmael. Shemaiwan, Shemaiwan Allah, Yashmai Allah, Miss Yashmael. Shemaiwan, Yashmai Allah. All right, Ishmael, Simeon. Is interpreted the hearing. For thus Leah said when she gave birth to him, for God heard me, the added one. For Leah said she gave birth to him, not doubting the love of her husband. Now my husband will be with me, Genesis 29, verse 34, because I have borne him 3 sons. 10. Judah is called the proclamation. For when Leah gave birth to him, she offered up praise to Yahweh, saying, Genesis chapter 29, verse 35, which we read earlier. Now over this I will proclaim Yahweh, and for this was called was he. This he was called Judah. Accordingly, his name was so called from proclamation, because it is a rendering of thanks. The Shashakar means he is a recompense, is indeed means he is, and Shachar means recompense. Yah Shashachar. This is because Leah purchased for herself intercourse with her husband and was owed to Rachel with the mandrakes her son Reuben. Whence, when Yeshashakar was born, Leah said, Genesis chapter 30, verse 18, God has given my recompense. Zebulon means dwelling place, for Leah gave birth to him as her 6th son, and therefore now assured, she said, Genesis chapter 30, verse 20, my husband shall dwell with me. Whence her son was called habitation, Naphtali. The principle in his name has to do with conversion or comparison. Comparatiano. Comparatino. Whence Rachel said, when her maid Bilhah had given birth to him, God hath made me live in a dwelling with my sister. Dan means judgment, for Bilhah gave birth to him. Her mistress Rachel said, Genesis chapter 30, verse 6, the Lord has judged for me the hearing my voice. He had given me a son. She expressed the principle in that name because the Lord had judged. She imposed the name judgment on the son of her maid servant. 15. Gad was named from outcome or disposition. For when Zilpah had given birth to him, her mistress Leah said, Genesis 30:11, happily, that is, meaning with regard to his disposition or to his outcome. 16. Asher means blessed. For when Zilpah had given birth to him, Leah said, Genesis 3:13, blessed am I, and women bless me. All praise. That's right. That's right, Alma. She called Asher blessed in etymology of his name because she is called blessed. Joseph, because his mother had wanted to add another for herself. She called him the addition, Yahusab, the addition. Pharaoh called him, listen, listen, here we go, uh-oh, Zaphanath, Zaphanath. I want to take this name and I want to give it to you as a gift. Joseph's name was called Zaphanath. Now, if you can take this name Zaphanath, you might be able to find Joseph in other Antiquities books, including Jeremiah. Please say the Yah. Including, you might even be able to find him in Egyptology. Maybe, possibly. I'm going to go on a search. I think that name is beautiful. I think it's not spoken on enough. I think I'm going to start calling Joseph Zaphanath. I think I might start calling him that. No matter why. So other Yasharim can hear it and so that they can start saying it too. Zaphanath. Have you ever heard the name Zaphanath? Did you know that that was Joseph's name? This is why we do these post games. This is why we do these pre games. We just read the whole Torah portion, right? Salakria, we just read the whole Torah portion. And in the process of reading that, now we're going back and we're proving with more information. We just went through Flavius Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews. This is the whole second video. And after this video, I believe I'll get some rest. We should get some rest. But we'll see. You know, it's whatever the Most High gives. Point is, did you know that Zaphanath, the name that's on your screen, was Joseph's name? I didn't. I don't have no problem saying I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I'm a lame from nowhere. These names are very important. Now, this book is called Clementine Homilies. Okay? This book that we're looking at, I'm going to see if we can get a screen share to work. We're looking at a book. I'm looking at a book called Clementine Homilies. And in Clementine Homilies, there's a name called Faustus and Faustinius. Now, I'm having a little bit of issue with Clementine Homilies right now because I have to validate, I have to prove that it is an actual factual book that we can say these events happened. So I'm still going through the process of that. There's some on this side that says it's not. There's some that's on this side that says it is. You know, it's still in the air. But Zaphanath, if you study Egyptology, you should be able to find Zaphanath in some of these books. If you're an Israelite, if you're a Hebrew, if you're Yashar Allah, and you like to try to prove things, and you like to be, you know, well, maybe I can show where Joseph was a pharaoh. Okay, maybe you can. Maybe you can take this name and just do a real quick search. Look at this right here. Joseph, because his mother had wanted to add another to herself, she called him the addition. Pharaoh called him Zaphanath. Copy and just do a search, which in Hebrew signifies discoverer of hidden things, because he had laid bare obscure dreams and predicted the blight. Still, because this name was imposed to him by the Egyptian, it ought to have a rationale. It had to have a rationale in Pharaoh's own tongue. Therefore, the Egyptian speech, Zaphanath, is interpreted Savior of the world. He called them Jesus. He called him Yahushai. Everybody in Egypt was calling Pharaoh Zaphanath, not Pharaoh, Joseph Zaphanath, Savior of the world. Yo, you can't get these things, you know, saying you can't get these things. Some stuff you have to go through the books. You got to dig through the crates. Because he liberated the land. He saved the land. The word liberate is also liberate me, save me, salvation. Yashaya, Yah, or Shaya, Yashai, save me. because he liberated the land from imminent destruction by famine. Benjamin 19 means son of my right hand. For those who don't know, my name is Benjamin. All right, son of my right hand. That is of valor or valor. I didn't know that. For the right hand is called Inium. What? You see how much you learn when you read? This is fun. It's Inium. Indeed, his dying mother gave him the name Benoni, that is, son of my pain. His father changed this name, naming him son of my right hand. You know, that's so beautiful. Oh, wow. So in her dying, yes, Leah was loved more, but in her dying, he was like, nah, you're not son of pain. You son of my right hand. Your mama was my right hand. Your son. Yo, that just hurt me on so many beautiful different levels. You are the son of my right hand, son. Your mother was my right hand. 20, Manasseh, was so called because his father was unmindful of his hardships. For this is the word unmindfulness in Hebrew, Ephraim, Apodium, Ephraim, because God added, hold on, wait, let's go back. My bad. Because God added, take our, oh, my bad. All right, Ephraim, oh, my bad. Is that Ephraim? No, it's like that. Apodium, yeah, Apodium. Hey, Shalom, Ephraim was in the building for this week's Torah portion because Yahweh added on him, let's see what it says. Yahweh added him on, and his name translated in our tongue as addition. Wow, look at that, translated. And that's something else. Translated in our tongue means addition. And that's something I think is so dope because Isidore makes a difference. I was doing a study on Isidore. Somebody was like, yeah, you can't use Isidore. Isidore is a damn Greek. It's like, man, shut up. Man, just shut up, man. Isidore makes a distinct difference in who he's talking about, just like the Apostle Paul does. All right. So, anywho, I hope that was helpful. I'm going to leave this page open because I have a feeling that we're going to probably come back to it. Probably definitely going to come back to it, especially dealing with looking at the moon. All right. So that was Isidore Seville's etymologies and dealing with the names of the 12 tribes. All right, and I sincerely hope that was a help. I want this video to be short because I want it to be used as a clip. No 2-hour video on this one. That being said, Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.